You won't believe what happened at this car dealership. A man walked in just like any other customer, but within minutes, he was insulted, humiliated, and thrown out by the manager. What the manager didn't know? That man wasn't just a customer. He was about to be his boss. Make sure to watch this story till the end, because what happens next will change everything. His name was Darnell Reed, calm, confident, and dressed in business casual clothes. Nothing flashy, nothing loud. Just a man walking into a car dealership, interested in seeing how the business was being run. He didn't arrive in a fancy car. He didn't show up with a briefcase or a name badge. He came in quietly, like any regular customer might on a Thursday afternoon. The dealership had been struggling for months. A new ownership deal had gone through just last week. Darnell had finalized the paperwork and now had full control over the location. But instead of showing up in a limo or calling ahead, he decided to stop by unannounced. No one working there had seen him before. He hadn't made a single post about it online. No press, no introduction. He wanted to see how things were really being handled on the floor, without the filters, without the fake smiles. As he stepped inside, he noticed a few sales reps talking to each other near the front desk. They glanced over at him, but didn't say anything. He nodded politely and kept walking toward the show floor. No one approached him. No one offered to help. After a few more seconds of looking around, he finally asked one of the salespeople, "Hey, is there someone I can speak with about the cars you have in inventory?" The man barely looked up. He responded with a short, "Someone will be with you in a minute." That minute turned into 10. And during those 10 minutes, Darnell noticed how every other customer, 2 white men in button-ups and an older couple, were greeted instantly. Smiles, handshakes, offers of water. He looked down at himself. A simple navy polo shirt, black jeans, clean sneakers. He didn't look like a millionaire. That's exactly what he wanted. Finally, a tall man with slicked back hair and a clipboard in hand walked over. His name tag read, Craig Bowman, General Manager. Craig didn't smile. He didn't offer his hand. He didn't even say hello. He looked Darnell up and down, eyebrows raised. "You lost or something?" Craig asked. Darnell stayed calm. "Number, I'm here to take a look at your current stock. Wanted to see how the place runs day to day." Craig smirked. "You can't just walk around and start browsing inventory without an appointment. You're not even with a sales rep." Darnell replied, "I did ask for someone." No one seemed available. Craig crossed his arms. "Look, man, we don't have time to entertain walk-ins who are just here to waste our time. If you're not buying something, you're going to need to leave." Darnell kept his tone level. "And if I told you I had business here?" Craig laughed. "What kind of business? You trying to apply for a job? Service department's around back, but we're not hiring." Darnell raised an eyebrow. "You don't even know who I am." Craig's smile disappeared. "I know what I see. I see someone standing around, asking questions, not dressed like anyone important. That's all I need to know." There was a pause. Darnell didn't blink. Craig didn't back down. Then Craig turned and waved over one of the junior reps. "Can you escort this guy out? He's not here for anything serious." The younger man hesitated. He looked at Darnell, unsure. Darnell sighed. "You sure about this?" Craig nodded. "Positive." The rep stepped forward, clearly uncomfortable. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step outside." Darnell nodded slowly. "All right." He walked toward the exit, calm, collected, not a word raised. But as he reached the door, he turned back to Craig. Let your team know the new owner stopped by today, he said plainly, and let them know you were the one who kicked him out. Craig frowned. What are you talking about? I signed the papers last Friday. I own this place now. Craig stared at him like he didn't believe what he was hearing. You're joking. No joke. You'll be getting a call from the regional director in about an hour. I'll give them a full report. With that, Darnell walked out the door, leaving Craig speechless. He didn't yell. He didn't argue. He didn't threaten. He just dropped the truth like a bomb and walked away. One of the other sales reps who overheard everything walked over to Craig. Did he just say he's the new owner? Craig didn't respond. He was too stunned. The regional director's call came exactly 45 minutes later. And when Craig picked up, his hands were shaking. Craig's fingers trembled as he answered the phone. Hello? He said, voice suddenly unsure. Craig Bowman? The voice on the other end asked. Yes, speaking. This is Terrence Miles from Regional. I just got off the phone with Mr. Reed. I'm assuming you know who that is. Craig hesitated. He came by the dealership earlier. There was a pause on the line. Then Terrence's voice came back, sharper this time. He's the new owner of your location. That should have been in your email days ago. We've been working on this transition for weeks. You had one job, keep things running smoothly. What happened today was unacceptable. Craig's face flushed red. I didn't know who he was. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't have to. Your job is to treat every customer with professionalism, not decide who deserves respect based on how they dress. Craig swallowed hard. I understand. No, I don't think you do, Terrence replied. Mr. Reed wanted to see how the staff handles walk-ins. That's how most owners test the waters. You failed that test within 2 minutes. Craig didn't say anything. He couldn't. I suggest you think carefully about your next moves. Mr. Reed will be back, and this time, everyone will know exactly who he is. Click. The line went dead. Craig stood there for a moment, frozen. The rest of the staff started whispering, stealing glances at him. News was already spreading through the dealership like wildfire. One of the receptionists had overheard the phone call. Another saw the email forwarded to Craig's inbox minutes later with the subject line, Ownership Confirmation, Darnell Reed. By noon, the entire dealership knew. The man they brushed off, the man they ignored, the man Craig tried to throw out, was now their boss. Across town, Darnell sat in a quiet cafe, phone buzzing nonstop. Some were congratulations. Some were apologies. Others were messages from employees already trying to explain what had happened. But Darnell wasn't interested in excuses. He pulled out his notebook and started writing. Notes, names, behaviors he observed. Not out of anger, but clarity. He wasn't here to embarrass anyone. He was here to build something better. And to do that, he needed to know who he could trust. The next morning, Darnell walked into the dealership again. This time, he didn't come alone. He was joined by 2 senior advisors from corporate, both there to formally introduce him to the staff. As he stepped through the glass doors, all eyes turned. The energy was different now. Some stood up straighter. Some avoided eye contact. Craig wasn't anywhere in sight. One of the senior advisors, a tall woman named Linda Tran, clapped her hands. Everyone, this is Mr. Darnell Reed. As of last week, he is the new owner of this dealership. He's here to meet you all and speak about the direction we're going in. The room fell silent. Darnell stepped forward. No smile, no anger, just calm focus. I was here yesterday, he began. No one recognized me. That's fine. I didn't expect you to. What I didn't expect was how I was treated. Some of you ignored me. Some of you watched. One of you made sure I left. He scanned the room. Craig had finally entered from the side office. He stood by the wall, pale and still. I didn't come here to fire people today, Darnell continued. That's not how I work. But I do pay attention. I believe in treating every person who walks through that door with respect, no matter what they wear, where they come from, or what you think they can afford. No one said a word, but several heads lowered. I've worked my way up in this industry. I've been on the sales floor. I've scrubbed showroom floors. I've taken customers for test drives in 100-degree heat, so I know exactly how it feels when people don't take you seriously. And I also know what a good team looks like. He paused, letting his words settle in. I'm not here to embarrass anyone, but I will make changes if I have to. Then he turned to Craig. Craig, you and I need to talk in my office, now. Craig followed without a word. Inside the glass-walled office, Darnell closed the door and sat down across from him. You've been running this place for a while, right? Craig nodded slowly. Yes. You've seen the numbers. You know the dealership hasn't been doing well. Customer reviews are bad. Turnover is high. You've lost more repeat clients than you've gained in the last year. I've tried my best, Craig said, almost whispering. You've tried what you thought was best. That's not the same thing. Craig sat back, defeated. Tell me the truth, Darnell said. When I walked in yesterday, what made you decide I didn't belong? Craig looked away. I judged you, based on how you looked. I assumed. You assumed I wasn't worth your time, Darnell said, finishing the sentence for him. And if that's how you treat me, I can only imagine how many other customers you've done that to. Craig nodded silently. Darnell leaned forward. You have two options. One, you step down today and we part ways cleanly. Or two, you stay, on probation, and every move you make from here on out is reviewed by me personally. No shortcuts, no disrespect, no guessing who deserves your attention. Craig's throat tightened. I'll stay, if you'll let me. Darnell nodded. Then you better start over, from scratch. They stood up, shook hands. Back outside, the staff was still quiet. Darnell walked out and said clearly, Craig will remain for now. But things are going to change. Starting today. The staff slowly began to nod. Some clapped. A few looked relieved. Darnell turned to the receptionist and smiled for the first time. Can you print the weekly performance reports? I'd like to see who's actually moving cars on this floor. She nodded quickly and walked off. And just like that, the new era at the dealership had begun. But that wasn't the end of the story. Not even close. Because just 2 weeks later, something happened that no one, not even Darnell, saw coming. 2 weeks had passed, and the energy inside the dealership had completely shifted. Darnell had reorganized the workflow, introduced a new training program, and made time to speak with every single employee, from the janitorial staff to the top sales associates. People were showing up early. Cars were being moved off the lot faster than before. Customer reviews were improving. But one morning, as Darnell sat at his desk reviewing last month's performance reports, a knock came at the office door. It was Hannah, the receptionist. There's a woman outside asking for you, she said. She didn't give a name, but she seems upset. Darnell stood up and walked out. At the front desk stood a woman in her 50s, dressed sharply, but her eyes showed stress. You're Mr. Reed? She asked directly. Yes, I am. How can I help you? I'm Susan Carter. My husband bought a used SUV from here 6 months ago. We were told it had been fully inspected and serviced. But last week, while driving on the highway, the brakes failed. He crashed. He's in the hospital right now. The room went quiet. Every employee within earshot turned toward them. Darnell looked her straight in the eye. Mrs. Carter, I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't own the dealership 6 months ago, but I'd like to make things right. Let's go into my office and talk. She nodded and followed him inside. They sat down, and Susan pulled a folder from her purse. Inside were photos of the wrecked vehicle, hospital bills, and service records. Darnell flipped through them slowly. The inspection log shows this was approved by Craig, Susan said. He signed off on it himself. Darnell looked up. This document is from 4 months ago? Yes, that's when the problem started. My husband kept telling me the brakes didn't feel right. We brought it back twice. Craig told us both times the car was fine. Darnell closed the folder. His jaw tightened. Thank you for bringing this in. Let me investigate immediately. As soon as she left, Darnell called Craig into his office. You signed off on this? He asked, showing him the paperwork. Craig glanced at the document and hesitated. Yeah, I remember that one. You told the customer it was fully inspected? It passed the basics. Pads weren't worn out. Rotors looked okay. And when they brought it back a second time, you sent them home again? Craig lowered his eyes. I didn't want to spend more money on a car we'd already sold. Management back then told us to minimize post-sale service unless it was urgent. That management is gone, Darnell said firmly. But you were still here. And this? This could have gotten someone killed. Craig didn't respond. I want every car inspected again. No shortcuts. I don't care how new or used it is. If it's on the lot, we're going through it top to bottom. Craig nodded, but Darnell could see the weight of his decision hitting him hard. The next day, Darnell personally visited the hospital to check on Susan's husband, Richard. He brought flowers, covered a portion of their medical bills, and offered a replacement vehicle at no cost. But more importantly, he apologized, not just with words, but with action. Back at the dealership, the staff had begun to change the way they worked. People were no longer focused only on sales. They were paying attention to customer satisfaction, to service records, to long-term trust. And that's when something unexpected happened. One afternoon, a luxury black SUV pulled up. The driver stepped out, a tall man in a gray suit with a clipboard in his hand. He walked straight to the front desk and asked, Is Mr. Reed in? Hannah nodded and called Darnell immediately. When Darnell came out, the man extended his hand. My name's Frederick Dorsey. I'm a senior field evaluator from the Auto Dealer Integrity Council. We conduct undercover evaluations on dealerships across the state. I came here today because your dealership was flagged twice. Once for poor treatment of customers, and once for suspected falsification of inspection reports. Darnell stayed calm. That happened before I took over, but you're welcome to look into anything you need. Frederick nodded. That's why I'm here. I've already interviewed a few customers, and your name came up more than once, for doing the right thing. That caught Darnell off guard. We actually sent a couple to buy a car here last week. They were part of our evaluation program. You offered them the same deal as everyone else. No pressure, no discrimination. That kind of consistency is rare. Darnell's shoulders relaxed a little. We're in the middle of rebuilding this place, he said. I know what it was. I know what it's going to be. Frederick smiled slightly. We'll be watching. But based on what I've seen so far, This dealership might be in the running for one of our annual integrity awards. Don't stop now." He handed Darnell a card and left. That moment marked a turning point, not just for Darnell, but for the entire team. Word of the visit spread. For the first time, people felt proud to work there, but not everyone was adapting to the new direction. A few days later, Darnell caught wind of something troubling. A younger salesperson named Bryce had been quietly undermining the changes, grumbling to other staff, pushing back on the new inspection rules, and even telling customers to come back later if they didn't look like serious buyers. One morning, Darnell pulled him aside. "Bryce, you've been here a while. You know the old way of doing things, but this isn't that place anymore." "I'm just trying to sell cars," Bryce said defensively. "If someone walks in wearing sandals and asking about a luxury model, I'm not going to waste my time." Darnell didn't flinch. "You just described me on my first visit." Bryce opened his mouth, then shut it. "I'm not firing you, but I am telling you, if your mindset doesn't change, you won't last long here." Bryce didn't say a word, but 2 days later, he handed in his resignation. And strangely, it helped the rest of the staff breathe easier. It showed everyone that Darnell meant what he said. Meanwhile, Craig had been working hard to turn things around. He apologized to Susan and Richard in person. He stayed late to double-check service logs. He even started mentoring new hires to avoid the mistakes he made. Darnell watched him closely. Craig still had flaws, but he was trying. One afternoon, as the team gathered in the break room for a quick meeting, Darnell walked in with a smile. "I've got news," he said. "We hit a record this month. Best customer satisfaction score this location has seen in 3 years." There were cheers, claps, and high fives. "But we're not done," he continued. "Because this is about more than numbers. It's about who we are when no one's watching." He looked around the room, then said, "I used to dream of owning a dealership. Not because I wanted the title, but because I wanted to prove that you don't have to cut corners to be successful. You don't have to judge people by their appearance, and you definitely don't need to follow old habits to make something work." He paused, then added, "Next week we're holding a customer appreciation event. Free inspections, food trucks, music. It's not about selling. It's about showing this community we're not the same place we used to be." And that event would be the moment that would take the entire story to a whole new level. Because someone else was about to walk in. Someone from Darnell's past. And their arrival would change everything. The morning of the customer appreciation event arrived, and the dealership was buzzing with activity. Banners were up, food trucks were parked outside, and people from the neighborhood were already gathering. Darnell walked through the lot, greeting guests and employees. The atmosphere was positive. It felt like the beginning of something fresh, something honest. Then, as Darnell was handing a bottled water to a couple waiting for their free inspection, he heard a familiar voice behind him. "Well, I'll be. Never thought I'd see you running a place like this." He turned around slowly. Standing just a few feet away was Victor Bennett, Darnell's former district manager from his very first sales job. The man who once told Darnell he was too friendly with customers and that he needed to be more aggressive to ever make it in the business. Victor still had that confident swagger, though his hair had thinned, and his suit looked a little tighter than it used to. "Victor," Darnell said, keeping his tone neutral. "Didn't expect to see you here." "I was passing through, heard about this event, thought I'd stop by. When I saw the signs, I had to come see if it was really you in charge." Darnell nodded. It is. I bought the place a couple months ago. Victor raised his eyebrows, then gave a slow, sarcastic clap. Well, congratulations. I guess playing nice worked out for you after all. Darnell didn't take the bait. Customers come back when they feel respected. That's what's working here. Victor laughed. You always had that soft approach. Not my style. I'm surprised this place is even turning a profit. Darnell folded his arms. We are. Record month, actually. Victor shook his head, clearly not thrilled. Must be luck. Just then, Hannah walked over. Mr. Reed, the local newspaper team is here. They want to do a quick interview. Darnell smiled. Perfect. I'll be right there. He turned to Victor. Enjoy the food trucks, Victor. And try not to talk anyone out of doing the right thing. Victor didn't reply. Later that afternoon, as the event wrapped up and the last few guests trickled out, Darnell sat at his desk looking over a few notes. Craig stepped in with a paper in his hand. You'll want to see this, he said, placing the document down. It was a resignation letter. Not from Craig, but from one of the service team members, Lou, who had been quietly slacking off and blaming others when things went wrong. Darnell had been watching him closely for weeks. I didn't say anything, Craig added, but he probably realized this isn't the place to hide anymore. Darnell nodded. That's fine. The people who want to be here stay. Over the next few weeks, the dealership's reputation kept improving. Customers were referring friends. Local small business owners were reaching out to collaborate. Darnell started a free car care workshop every Saturday for first-time buyers. It wasn't about money. It was about showing people they weren't just a sale. Then, one day, something happened that Darnell would never forget. A young man named Caleb walked into the dealership, wearing old jeans and a hoodie. He looked nervous. He kept glancing around, clearly unsure if he even belonged there. Darnell saw him and walked over. Need help with something? He asked calmly. Caleb hesitated. I've never bought a car before. I just got my first real job. I don't have credit, and most places I've tried just brushed me off. Darnell nodded. You came to the right place. He sat with Caleb for over an hour, walking him through options. No pressure, no fast talk, just honest guidance. By the end of the meeting, Caleb didn't leave with a car, but he left with a plan and a promise to come back in 2 months after saving up more for a down payment. Caleb's story spread online after he wrote about his experience in a local Facebook group. Dozens of people commented. Many said they had similar experiences. A few admitted they'd avoided the dealership in the past, but now they were willing to give it a shot. And that's when Darnell knew the change was real. The dealership wasn't just a business anymore. It was a place people trusted. Then came an unexpected phone call. The Integrity Council, the same organization that had visited weeks earlier, invited Darnell to a statewide dealership summit. They wanted him to speak on how to rebuild culture in a business with a bad reputation. Darnell flew out a few days later. When he took the stage, the room was full of managers, owners, and sales directors from across the region. He told the story from the very beginning, the day he walked in wearing a t-shirt and was told to leave. The disrespect, the assumptions, the buyout, the hard choices, the second chances, and the people who changed alongside him. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He didn't pretend it was easy. But when he finished, the room gave him a standing ovation. One man walked up afterward and said, "Your story? That's exactly what this industry needs more of." Back home, things continued to evolve. Hannah was promoted to customer service director. Craig took on a leadership role in operations. And the new hires coming in were being trained with a completely different mindset, one based on respect, transparency, and consistency. A year after Darnell had taken over, the dealership was named one of the top-rated mid-size dealerships in the state. He didn't hang the award plaque in his office. He hung it in the break room, where everyone could see it. Because he knew this wasn't about one man. It was about everyone who chose to stay, grow, and do better. One afternoon, as Darnell stood outside the lot sipping coffee, he saw a familiar face drive up. It was Caleb, but this time he wasn't in a hoodie. He was in work slacks and a polo shirt. Behind him was his mother. They were both smiling. "I'm ready," Caleb said. Darnell smiled back. "Let's get you that car." And as Caleb drove off an hour later, keys in hand, waving back at the team that had treated him with respect from day one, Darnell felt something deep inside settle. He had done more than turn a dealership around. He had proved that no matter what someone looks like, where they come from, or how they speak, what matters most is how we treat them. And that lesson? That's what stays with people long after the sale is over.